Why does it feel like you don't quite belong anywhere anymore? Not just politically, though that's part of it, but it cuts deeper. It's that feeling you get when you watch the news and feel like a stranger in a country you've lived in your whole life. You sit at a family dinner and realize you can't say out loud what you actually think and feel inside. You vote, and no matter which direction you vote, you leave the booth feeling vaguely misrepresented. Like none of the options offered have room for everything you believe and love and hope for. Not surprisingly, Scripture speaks to this, just as it speaks to everything else under the sun that matters. In 597 BC, a large portion of Jerusalem's population was forcibly removed to Babylon, not deported in some orderly bureaucratic way, but literally taken, removed from the land they believed God had given them, from the temple where they worshiped, and from the rhythms and relationships that had shaped everything about who they were and who they wanted to become. They were sitting in a foreign city, grieving, disoriented, and waiting to go home without any guarantee that it would ever happen. And then God sent them a letter. Through the prophet Jeremiah, he told them something they almost certainly did not want to hear. Build houses in Babylon and live in them. Plant gardens, get married, have children, multiply, don't diminish. And then the letter says this: seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. That's Jeremiah 29, verse 7. Seek the welfare of Babylon. Pray for Babylon. This was not what the people of Israel wanted. They wanted to go home. They wanted vindication. They wanted the exile to end. And God said, while you wait, invest. While you grieve, build. While you long for home, love the place that you're in. God wasn't telling them Babylon was their ultimate home. He wasn't asking them to forget Jerusalem or surrender their hope of return. He was asking them to hold two things at once: genuine grief over their exile and genuine investment in their current address. Not one or the other, but both at the very same time. This is the heart posture that many of us need help developing right now. The 5th century theologian Augustine spent 13 years writing his great work, The City of God, after the sack of Rome in 410 AD shook the Christian world to its foundations. Believers everywhere were asking whether God had abandoned them, whether the collapse of the empire meant that everything was lost. Augustine's answer is just as relevant today as it was back then. He wrote that in the city of God, as it moves through history, it calls citizens out of all nations and gathers together a society of pilgrims of all languages. It doesn't destroy earthly cities, Augustine said. It moves through them, the city of God does. It borrows from them what it can. It serves them genuinely and refuses only to give them what belongs to God alone. Pilgrims. That's his word for us also. Not tourists passing through without caring, not permanent residents who have forgotten where they're ultimately from. Pilgrims, people on their way somewhere, who invest in the road they're walking right now. What Jeremiah is describing from the ground level, Augustine is naming from 10,000 feet. Build, plant, seek the welfare of your city, build a meaningful life, love your God, serve your neighbor, and embed yourself in community. Because your flourishing for now is caught up with the flourishing of Babylon itself. Notice what God does not say to the exiles. He does not say disengage. He does not say your grief about and resistance to this corrupt and violent city is wrong. He does not say pretend you're not in exile. He acknowledges and shows compassion concerning the exile. He addresses the letter to a people, his people, who are genuinely displaced. And then he tells them what faithful displacement looks like. It looks like building something that will outlast you, investing in relationships across lines you didn't draw, praying for people in power who do not share your values or beliefs, not because you endorse what they're doing, but because their city's peace is for now your city's peace too. This is not naivety. It's not indifference to injustice. It is the clear-eyed, costly love of someone who knows exactly where they belong and is therefore free to love a place they don't belong to ultimately, but are in reality just passing through. The person who understands herself as a pilgrim, as someone who genuinely belongs elsewhere, is actually capable of a deeper love for this earthly city than the person who has made this city their final home. The exile who knows she is an exile can love Babylon without being destroyed when Babylon disappoints her. She can vote without panicking. She can advocate without losing her cool or surrendering her character. She can grieve the city's failures without being consumed by them, because her hope was never finally resting here. So we'll end this where we started. Why does it feel like you don't quite belong anywhere anymore? Maybe it's because you don't. Not ultimately, not finally. And maybe that's not a problem to be solved right now. Maybe instead it's a gift to be received. The restlessness you feel about the world we live in is not a sign that your faith is defective or that you've somehow ended up on the wrong side of history. You're someone who is made for a city whose architect and builder is God, and your heart knows that no other place than that will do. But in the meantime, for the love of God, build anyway, plant anyway, seek the peace of the place you're in, and pray for it anyway. Because for now, its flourishing is bound up with yours. And the God who sent that letter through Jeremiah to the exiles is not finished. In the fullness of time, there will be more for him to say and more to accomplish in his mission to bring us all home.